in our series on using XM Online for brokers. I'm here in Washington with Lauren Kirsch from our Information Management Technology Department. She's helping with the technicalities of the webinar, and she's also a guru of XM Online. So if there are very technical questions, she can answer that. I'm also here with Arnold Chow, the Director in Trade Finance, who looks after the short-term insurance policies for banks, as well as the single buyer policy that we'll be going over today. Now, at the moment, we are trying to make sure you can all speak into the webinar if you have any questions. Is everyone everyone able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. If you do have any problems and you're not able to speak, feel free to type in your issue on the little sidebar where if you say you want to ask a question, and we'll try to address your issue. Yeah, and also anytime during the presentation, if you have any questions, also feel free to ask them there, and we'll try to address them, or just speak up and interrupt me. That's absolutely fine. So as I said, this is the second in our series of XM Online training webinars. The first was on the Express application. If you missed that webinar, you can view it on the insurance broker portal, which I'll just go to now. If you start off at our website and then click on Insurance Brokers, this takes you to the broker portal. And the recording of the last one is right down here on the Express Insurance application on XM Online. So, but what we'll do now is we'll start the webinar today. We're going to go to XM Online and go through an ESS, which is the single buyer application for you. Just to remind everyone how to get to XM Online, in the same broker portal, if you click on XM Online here, this will take you to the login screen. If any of you are ever having trouble logging in, if you can't get your user ID or password to work, please call me or call Chantel, and we'll try to fix it for you.
What is my user ID?
We're just going to pause for a moment to have a look at our sound, because I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. You could just hang on a second. Maybe for all of you who are on the line, if you're not speaking, if you could please mute yourselves, maybe that would solve some of this feedback problem. We're just getting a lot of echoes. Okay, that seems to have helped. Yeah, other people have written in to say please ask people to put their phones on mute. I think that was very good advice. So hopefully it will be better now. Maybe we should just silence more. And if you have a question, raise your hand, because that makes the sound better, doesn't it? Let's try that. Okay, so we've gone to the login page on XM Online. I manage all of the broker logins. So if you ever have trouble logging in, please call me or email me, and I can reset your password, or you can reset your password yourself. I can also make sure that all the right people in your company have logins. I can disable people who have left or whatever. So please keep me posted in terms of the users on XM Online. Now for this demo site, I'm not going to log in here. I'm going to log in over here on the test site, because we obviously won't be filling in a real application today. So I'm just logging in, which hopefully should work. And the first thing you do if you're trying to apply for a new policy is you click on Apply for Insurance Policy or Guarantee. And what comes up first, because you're all in the broker view, will be a list of all of your clients. So this will be all of the exporters who have named you as a broker in the past. So if you're filling in a new application for a new client to XM Bank, you first need to make sure that they're set up on XM Online and that they have named you as a broker. Otherwise, they won't show up here on the screen, and you won't be able to fill in the application. So in this case, for our test system, we have one test exporter that we're going to click on here. And then we're going to select the application type, which in this case is the exporter short-term single buyer application. And then we're going to hit continue. This is the instruction page, and I'll just give you a little bit of background on the particular application that is our sort of sample today. This is a company in Virginia that you met at an exporter event, and they mentioned to you they're a beer producer. They have a brewery in Virginia, and their beer, which is India Pale Ale IPA, has ironically become very popular recently in India. So they've been dealing with a few distributors there, selling mostly on LC terms. They have one large distributor who they've done a couple of small open account sales to, but they're looking really to increase their business with them and do it all on open account terms. And so you have talked to them about the possibility of getting an Exim Bank single buyer policy, and they're interested in that. So that's sort of how the whole thing started. One thing, of course, you would check, as it's reminding you on this page, is you would check the CLS, the Country Limitation Schedule for India, to make sure that we're open for short term. So you've already done that, and we are open. So here you hit continue. This is just verifying the contact information for the exporter. So this is all correct. So you'll just hit continue. This is there from when they filled themselves in online. Now there's some general questions about the policy, and first one is the type of cover desired. This will default to comprehensive cover. Most of our single buyer policies are comprehensive, so in other words covering both the commercial risks, insolvency and protracted default, as well as the political risks. If you did for some reason want political only cover, you could check that there. I'm assuming this doesn't happen very often, and that maybe you would look for political only cover if you were selling to a subsidiary. Do we do that, Arnold? I'm looking to Arnold here.
Yes.
Yeah. Are there any other reasons why someone would want political only cover?
Nothing comes to mind.
Nothing comes to mind. So we'll just assume that most of your applications are comprehensive. Now the next question is, will the applicant have title to the products at the time they are shipped? Yes, they will. Will the applicant be directly invoicing the buyer? Yes, they will. Is this a resubmission of an application that was previously deemed incomplete or withdrawn? And we're going to say no. And then it says, why are you buying this policy? Now, as we discussed, they're buying it really for risk mitigation. They may need some financing as well, but the main motivation is risk mitigation. And the primary contact, we're going to say the broker, because we want Exim to always call the broker. So we're going to hit continue. Sometimes the test system takes a little longer than the normal system would. And this is the opportunity here for them to also add a financial institution or a city-state partner if they want. Obviously, the broker is already named in this case because we're the broker logged in as the broker. So the financial institution, we're going to say none. If they did have one, they can select one from our list. If they go here, sorry. Or they can add in a new institution, but we'll just skip that. Also, if they have used a city-state partner, we could also fill that in here. Probably in the case where they have a broker, they might not have done that. So we're just going to hit continue and say none. Now this page is now asking if there's any special coverages that are required. In this particular case of our example, we're going to say they're not because they're just making their beer and sending it off to India. But I'll briefly explain what the special coverages are so that you know. Warehouse would be if they're shipping to a warehouse, usually in the foreign country, and the buyer is taking the product out of their warehouse, and that's the shipment way of shipment. And it will ask you some questions about who owns the warehouse, etc., and a special endorsement would be added to the policy. There's also an endorsement if it's a service rather than a good. This is also your opportunity to apply for an enhanced assignment. If they are a small business exporter and they are planning on assigning this to the bank, they do have the option of getting an enhanced assignment on a single buyer policy. So if they check that, it will ask for more information, and the relationship manager might also ask for more information later in order to approve that. there is a higher threshold for the credit quality of the exporter. Also, there's a box to check if you're insuring sales by affiliates. So if they have maybe another subsidiary in the U.S. that's also exporting, or even a subsidiary overseas that's somehow involved, this is your opportunity to check that box and get an endorsement. Pre-shipment coverage would be if they're making some piece of capital equipment, usually, or other custom-made product that can really only be delivered to this particular buyer, and they want cover in case there's a problem with the buyer during the pre-shipment period. If you check that, you will have to answer some more questions about that. There's a box here for bulk agriculture, and that's because, as most of you will know, there is a possibility of a higher indemnity, up to 98%, if it's an agricultural product. Also an option to shipment to address in the U.S. In case the buyer is using a freight forwarder in the U.S. and you want that to be endorsed. Also an option if the buyer is making payment in foreign currency. That can also be another endorsement. And then if there's any other issues that you think might require a special endorsement, this is the opportunity to check the other box and explain it below there. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Arnold, about endorsements, or if anyone has questions about any of these special coverages. Sorry, I've just seen a couple of questions that have come through, so I'm just going to quickly answer them before we move on. Sorry, it's a little hard for me to see the questions, but we're managing to get it here. A question has come in asking if you should check political only if the exporter is selling to a public entity, and the answer to that question is no. If you want non-payment cover as well, it needs to be the comprehensive cover. I assume that this person means by public entity they mean a sovereign buyer, and sovereign buyers still do require comprehensive cover. Another question has said, another question has just asked, do they need to have named the broker as a broker? And the answer to that is yes. And the best way to do that is to have the exporter set themselves up on Ex-Im Online as name you as the broker. Okay, so we will move on. I think that's all the questions we've had so far. If anyone does want to speak, you can also press the little button to raise your hand, and I'll unmute you. I've just muted everyone because of all the feedback that we were having. So the next part of the application is to set up all of the participants who are involved. Participant is a word that we use at Ex-Im Bank to it really just means like any company that's involved in any transaction. I know it's sometimes a confusing term, but basically for your standard single buyer policy, the participants would really just be the exporter and the buyer, and those are the two that are required. So I'm going to hit continue here. And what this is basically saying is all the types of participants you could have. The exporter is required. You could have a supplier in the instance where the exporter was, say, a wholesaler who wasn't actually the manufacturer, so there could be a separate supplier that you would want named on the policy. The buyer is obviously the buyer, and they are required in order to get a quote. There could also be an end user, say if you were delivering the products to one end user but getting payment from someone else, that's when you would have an end user. Guarantor would be as if you have a guarantee, if there's a payment guarantee on the payment risk. And last one is an agent who may be helping out somehow in the transaction. You should have them named. So what the system has automatically made your exporter, put them in here as the exporter and the applicant, which is correct. This is the brewery in Virginia. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add the buyer. So we're going to click on Use New Participant, and then we're going to check Buyer. And then this is where you need to just fill in all the information that you have about the buyer. And they're in India, and we're going to call them American Beer Distribution. We're going to make up a street in India. And we're just, at this point, I'm only going to fill in the required fields here because we are This is obviously made up. But of course, the more information that you put in here, the better, because that will help our underwriters make their decision. So I think that will hopefully be enough. So there you go. So now we have the exporter applicant, which is our company in Virginia, and also the buyer, which is American Beer Distribution in India. Would you like to add any more participants, Arnold? Are you happy with
No,
that?
that's usually what we see.
Okay.
So,
So those are the two most common, obviously the two important ones. So we'll hit continue. Now this is just asking a little more additional questions about the exporter, if they're a minority-owned business or a women-owned business. And these questions are important for us in our record keeping. It's one of our congressional mandates to support minority-owned and women-owned businesses. So we would really appreciate it if you would take the time to accurately answer these questions, because it helps us with our data. And just wanted to add, it will ask this about the exporter and the supplier, because those are the two important entities for us in terms of these types of information. In this case, we're going to say, yes, it's minority owned. It's actually an Indian American family in Virginia that has this brewery, but it's not women owned. So we're going to hit continue. This is asking if there's a direct or indirect ownership interest or family relationship between any of the participants, and we're going to say no. Now this is where you need to tell the system who the PSOR in the transaction is. The PSOR is the primary source of repayment, and the PSOR is who we're really going to do our most diligent buyer underwriting of in order to approve this transaction. So in this case, it is the PSOR is the buyer, American Beer Distribution. So we're going to hit that. I don't believe they have a bond rating. I've just made them up, so we're not going to click on that. And we're just going to hit continue. And now this is where you need to. Sorry, can I just minimize this? This is where you need to attach any credit information that you have about the PSOR. So let's click on credit information. And what we're going to say in this case, it's asking for the risk category. This obviously will have a big impact on the pricing of the transaction. And this is it's a private company, so we're going to click private. Is it a financial institution? No. And then we're going to continue. And this is probably the trickiest screen in the whole ESS application, so we'll try not to be too overwhelmed. It's really just asking for your experience with the buyer and a little bit more about what you know with the buyer, how long you've known them, etc. The exporter does have experience with the buyer. We're going to say they've been selling to them for about a year. And it's important to write the year in the full format. So we're going to say it's from December last year. And we're going to say the first credit sale was just 6 months ago in June. So we're going to say in the current year, could the current year be 2010 or does it have to be 2011?
you can be
Maybe, okay. So it's really just, okay. So it's really just, we'll just say it's the past 12 months. So we'll say it's 12/20/10. Oh, this is asking for the credit experience, is that right?
Yes.
So only what's been sold on open account,
Yes.
not what's been sold on secure terms?
Right.
Is that right? Okay. So we're going to say that this is from June to now. And we're going to say the total amount that we've sold, say, is about $300,000. The total amount on credit terms, we'll say, is about $100,000. We're going to say the highest amount for which we've been paid has been, we'll say, $200,000. And we will say that the open account that we did was 60 days, or sorry, 90 days. And we're going to say that they now owe us $100,000. and that the payment history has been 1 to 30 days slow, because we probably wouldn't expect a buyer in India to pay smack on the due date, right, Arnold? As much as we would like it, but hopefully that's within the realm of not too late. There's no amount past due at the moment. Obviously, if there is something past due, we need to know why, and that will be looked at pretty carefully in the underwriting, especially given the stop shipment clause in the policy. So now we're going to hit continue. And then I think we should be able to move on to the next part of the application. Now this is where it asks you to add what products you're selling to the buyer. So you need to click on Add New Product. It's important that you give the exact product that you're selling, because that is something that our claims department will look at carefully, and it will also be named on the declarations of your policy. So you need to make sure you have the correct product. We're going to do beer, I think, is a consumer good, and it falls under beverage manufacturing. And there it is, breweries. Now this sector here is the sector of the exporter, correct?
Yes.
Right, not the sector of the buyer. So the buyer in this case is a retail distributor, but we are the brewery, so that's what we've put in there. And what I'm going to say here is that it's bottles of IPA beer, just to explain it. And this is what will show up on the policy declarations. So we're going to hit Add Product, and that's looking right. You can also add additional products if you are selling different products to this buyer. In this case, we're only selling beer, so we're just going to hit Continue. Now that's going to ask you some additional questions, basically to make sure that this transaction does qualify for EXIM support, and also help us in our underwriting. So are these products manufactured in the U.S.? Yes. Are they shipped from the U.S.? Yes. Are they on the munitions control list? No. That's because of our inability to cover defense-related products. Are they sold to military entities? No. Are they supporting nuclear energy? No. Are they new? Yes. Are they used? No. Are they capital goods? No. If you answer yes here, I guess this would come up in underwriting and potentially allow longer payment terms.
Yes.
Is that right, Arnold? Okay. And then will any value be added to the product after export? No. Has it been considered by another export credit insurer? No. It's not environmentally beneficial. It's not renewable energy. Now for small businesses, there are a few additional questions, and I think that we are a small business. I can't quite remember, but I think we'll say we are for the sake of argument. And as you all know, we did update our short-term content requirements last year for small businesses. So these further questions are basically asking if you're going to be taking advantage of those new content rules. More details about how exactly you're taking advantage of them will come up when you do shipment reports on the policy. I won't get into them in great detail now. In the case of beer, they wouldn't really apply, because beer would pretty much be all U.S. content. So we're going to say, yes, they're more than 50%, and so we're not going to answer these other two questions. And we are a small business, so we're not going to answer this last question. And we're going to hit Continue. Now it's asking for the actual transaction that we're looking to cover under the policy. It's now asking us for the transaction type and the tenor. Let me just see if I think maybe a question has come in. Let me try to say, oh, someone has asked for a definition of minority. For this one, I would probably have to refer you to our new director for women and minority-owned businesses, who's Sharon Koenig in Miami. And I will also get back to the person who's asked that question with an answer. I don't know the definition of minority. Do you know if we have it on our website or something, Arnold?
I don't know.
We're not aware. So I guess at this point we'll just say you use your best efforts. But I will get back to the person who asked that question. I'm just going to make a note of who it was. Thank you for the question. And then we have another question that says, can you add several buyers for the same transaction? The answer to that question is, in this particular policy type, no, because it is a single buyer policy. So this would only be the case where you have only one buyer. If they do have several buyers, it would be more appropriate for them to apply for a multi-buyer policy, and we can discuss that later. Another question asking about where can we find the SBA definition. For that, we always refer you to the SBA website. But that is the answer to that question is actually automatically calculated here by us at EXIM, by our operations department. It's not actually a question that you answer yourself. Is that right, Lauren, when you set yourself up?
When you set yourself up, as SBA, right, the system determines
Yeah.
what's out there.
Yeah, the system will look at it and determine if you're an SBA, small business, or not. I guess if there's an issue where your client says they are and our system has said they aren't, you should just contact us offline, and we'll have our operations department look into that. So the screen we're on here is about this particular transaction that we're looking to insure. We're going to select the transaction type, which would be open account. We could, on a single buyer policy, you could also insure some of these secure terms if you wanted. I guess probably the most common would be an unconfirmed letter of credit if you wanted cover on the bank, and that's why it was asking about the financial institution. But you can cover any of these types of transactions. It'll just make a difference on the pricing. So we're going to hit open account, and then we're going to hit that our payment terms were 90 days. We're going to say that we're shipping on December 1st. And the shipment to date would be the last day where you're expecting to ship under your current contract. So we're just going to say a year later because we're constantly shipping to them. And the expected highest amount outstanding, we're thinking it might get up to $500,000. So that's what we're applying for in this policy. Other security available will be if you do have a letter of credit, if you have any guarantees from the owners, personal guarantees, or from other guarantors. This is your opportunity to put it there. We're going to say none in this case because it is just a regular open account sale. Now here's our opportunity to provide any additional comments that we have. We're not going to do that in this case, but I know the relationship managers do appreciate it, particularly if you're the broker doing the application. If you can provide a little bit of background as to why they're buying this insurance or how you met them or anything else that you think might help your situation is always good to write it there. So now we're going to hit continue. And this is where you need to attach all the credit information that's required according to our short-term credit standards based on the size of the limit you're applying for. Now in this case, we've applied for a $500,000 limit. So we would have to attach an agency report, 2 favorable trade references, and financial statements, including your own trade history with the buyer. So what it does here is it gives us the opportunity to attach files from your own computer that have all this information. I'm not going to do that in this case. We'll see if it lets us submit the application, but this really is up to you to make sure that they've attached everything necessary. There's one more question has come in here. If you'll just hold on a second, we'll try to view the question. The question is, if you have a corporate guarantee, do you enter the name of the guarantor as a participant earlier in the application? In addition to this question that just asked about additional security, the question is, when do you put that in? And I'm going to ask this of Arnold.
Yeah, you would put it in as in the participant section where you're, where you're naming participants. You only have to do it there.
You only have to do it there. So when it asks you there about additional security, why is it saying that? We're not sure.
I don't know.
Okay, so maybe we'll say it better to put them in as a participant because then they would also be the PSOR. They would be the primary source of repayment.
It could also serve as a check. So if you did put, check off participant, that there was a guarantee, then we would see that and say, well, where's the guarantee, and ask you to identify it later on.
Right. Yeah, it's just, I guess it's just a double check to make sure that we know everything we need to know about the transaction. So we're going to say now that we have attached these documents, and we're going to hit continue. And this is also the opportunity to to attach anything else that you think might help if you didn't attach it earlier. We're not going to do that at this moment, but it can always help. Now here's a summary of our application. Just making sure that this is just an opportunity for you to check what you have, what you've typed in. It's all looking pretty good, so I think we're pretty happy with it. This is also, I think, where it will tell us if we're able to submit the application or not. We'll try to submit it, see if we had any errors. If we did, we'll go back and fix them. But the other thing to remember is that the exporter does need to sign this application certification page. If you click here, that's something that needs to be signed by the exporter and sent to us. So that's something that you can't do as the broker, but that the exporter needs to do at the same time. One other question has come in here, so I'm just going to try to address that now. This is someone asking about the exporter. Is a DUNS number required for the exporter? And this is something that we request when you add up, when you create an exporter account on Ex-Im Online. We do ask for a DUNS number of the exporter. And this broker is asking, will you receive an error message if they don't have a DUNS number? And that you might have to call Ex-Im to get the DUNS number added. Lauren's answer from IMT, I'll just let her say it herself.
Oh, I was just telling you that for the multi-buyer application, it does require the DUNS number, but for the ESS, it's not required to submit. But
Okay.
if it's needed, because a lot of times we do go out and get the DMV information on the exporter.
Okay.
But in order to submit, you are required for the multi-buyer application.
Okay, so that's a good difference I didn't know between the ESS and the multi-buyer applications, that it's not actually required for the ESS application, although it is something we will check on. So we're going to try to submit here and see what happens. Yay, we have been able to submit it, which is good. It's a big relief. No, I'm just kidding. But if we had any error messages, it will tell you what you've done wrong and what you need to go back and complete, and you can do that before you submit it. At the time that you do that submit, you get this tracking number, and I would suggest that you always make sure you write that down. At the same time, you and the exporter will also get an email confirming that the application has been submitted and also giving you this tracking number.
And you can also track the status of that application on your landing page.
Right, which maybe we'll go and do right now. Sorry, I just have this thing in my way. So we're going to go back to our landing page. And as Lauren said, that we can check the status of a pending application. So we're going to click here, pending applications. And here's the one, you can see I've been practicing this, but the one that we've just submitted is this one. It must be this one here that says ESS new, and its status is submitted. I also, the other day, had Arnold do a quote for us so that we can see how we would accept the quote once we have it. So maybe a week or two has passed, and you now have received an email that your quote is ready for viewing. So you would log on again, go back to your landing page, and click on Act on Quote. And then here's the application that you submitted with the same tracking number that you just received. It would be, I'm kind of like a cooking show where I've actually put it in the oven in advance to show you what it looks like. So we're going to click on that now, and this tells you your application has been approved, so you can view your quote. So we'll hit Continue. And this is really just a summary of the terms. The single buyer policy for private buyers will automatically default to 90% unless it's a bulk agriculture commodity. The premium rate is 1.06 for this particular case, and that's based on India private buyer and the payment terms. The other thing that you can do here before you accept the policy is have a look at what your policy would actually look like. So here, when you clicked here, these are your policy, sample policy documents. The first one is your declarations. So this will bring you up, bring up a PDF document of your declarations, what they would look like, so that you can have a look at them before you before you buy the policy. And then this one, if you click on the second one, this is the policy wording. So this is the standard wording that doesn't typically vary by exporter. And and this also here, if you had requested any special endorsements, they would also show up here so that you could have a look at them. So we're just going to go back. So here's our policy terms. If we've had a look at all the documentation, you've showed it to the exporter, they're ready to go ahead. This is also where you can accept the policy. It's also an opportunity if you want to request an extension. The system will automatically give you 60 days to think if you would like to buy the policy or not. If you need longer than that, you can request an extension. Or if something has changed in the interim and you want to amend your application, you can also go in and do that on this screen. For example, if you wanted a higher or lower claims payment limit.
Oh, no. The only thing
No?
you can change everything except for the amount.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Arnold. So you can
Well,
change everything except for the
Five
amount.
days.
After the initial offers, we don't allow, they're not going to have the option here to request a change to the amount.
Okay. So thank you for that clarification. You won't have the opportunity to change the amount, but you can change anything else. So if you want a different amount, the only course of action would be to do a new application. Is that
Or
correct?
accept it and we'll amend it later.
Oh,
We should
okay.
discuss it with
Okay.
our
Okay.
loan officer first.
Okay. So really the solution there is to speak to the relationship manager who's been assigned this policy, tell them that you need a different amount, and then you can decide if you want to issue the policy as it is and then amend it after it's issued, or if you want to do a new application, right? Okay. So we're going to say that we're accepting this. So we're going to hit accept, and we're going to say we want the effective date to be on December 1st, because that's when our
Okay.
shipment was.
Let me add that. If you
Please.
put a date in the future, you won't be able to see that quote, or you won't be able to see that policy until that date.
Until that date, okay. And if you put so if you put a date in the future, it'll just mean that on December 1st you would log in and see it. But if you logged in on November 25th, you wouldn't be able to see it. Okay. So that's useful information to know. So probably the best thing if you're doing that would be to print out your quote documents. So print out your declaration and your wording so that you have it on your desk for your peace of mind while you're waiting for the effective date to come up. We also can backdate up to 1 month. If it's more than 1 month, it will require approval by the relationship manager before it can happen. So now we're going to hit continue. And then this is just reminding you that that the policy documents won't be generated until the payment has been received, and as Arnold was just saying, they also won't be issued until the policy is actually started, until the inception date has come. And I think this is also the time where you are able to pay if you want. And for the ESS policies for a small business exporter, the minimum advance premium is always $500. So this is also your opportunity to pay the $500 with a credit card online is probably the easiest way to do it. So once you do that and the policy has become effective, that's when you'll get your policy documents. We have another question here, so I'm just going to have a look at it. Sorry, just a moment. I have one question asking if we finance exports that have less than 50% U.S. content. Our new short-term content rules that were rolled out last year do allow us to finance only the U.S. portion of any export that has less than 50% content. So say it was only 30% U.S. content, and it was the invoice was for $100, and $30 was U.S. content. We could cover that $30 only if it's short-term. So if it's a short-term single buyer, and only if the exporter is a small business. Those rules have changed recently. Someone else is asking, what if the buyer is new and the exporter doesn't have any history with them? Arnold, do you want to comment on the underwriting rules about that?
No, well, it's fine. There's nothing, there's no requirement that they do have history with the buyer.
I guess the important requirement is that they meet the short-term credit, the buyer meets the short-term credit standards.
Right.
One more question here. This is one more question that the person who asked it knows who they are, and I will address with them offline. So we'll go back to our screen with the payment. So this is where you could pay the $500. This is probably something you would have the exporter do. I'm assuming you as the broker don't want to pay this, but that's up to you and your relationship with them if you want to. So this is just giving you the opportunity to use a bank transfer or pay by check that you'll send in by mail or use a credit card. One thing we will say is that if you send a check, there is quite a delay in the processing of the check. So it's always good, if possible, to pay by credit card so that you get your documents exactly on time. It's the best way to require that. So I'm not gonna go through this now because we don't want to reveal our credit card numbers. But hopefully that was useful to everyone. Does anyone have any more questions from the broker side, or Arnold, do you have any other comments to add?
No, I haven't.
No, Lauren.
The only comment I was going to make is just when, I don't know if you recall at the very beginning when you had the application when they were showing the primary contact information,
Mm-hmm.
you do have the ability to update, it'll default the primary contact information to who you are logging in, but you can update that to make it, so you could have a different person for each policy that you have.
Right.
That'll be
Okay.
your primary contact for that particular policy and receive all corresponding notifications throughout the life of the policy.
Okay. So if in that primary contact page we put in the broker information, does that mean that the exporter would not receive emails?
That's correct.
Right,
It'll go
okay.
to that email
Then it would only
address.
go to the broker.
Correct.
Okay.
And it would also go to the broker
Mm-hmm.
as a broker on that policy.
Right.
So
Okay.
the broker will get it automatically,
Mm-hmm.
but the broker email address that it goes to is the broker email address that was put on file when the broker was set up
Right.
with Exim Bank.
Okay.
So sometimes if a different broker affiliated with that organization wants to be the primary contact on the policy, they'll put their email address in there, so they'll make sure they get the notifications.
Okay. So just to reiterate what Lauren said, when you go back to that primary contact page at the very beginning, that will default to the information of whatever company is logged in. So if it's the broker, it will default to the broker. So that's where all the policy information will go. If you want the information to go to the exporter and the broker, you should put the exporter information there because everything will automatically go to the broker anyway, to whoever is registered with that broker account. But if you want it to go to two individuals, different individuals at the broker, you need to put the second individual there under primary contact information. So hopefully that made sense. It's both of us explained it in a bit of a fumbling way, but hopefully that was clear. And if you have any questions, let us know. Let's see. There might be one other question here. Oh, someone was just saying they couldn't hear Lauren, but hopefully I've reiterated that. Someone has written in with a specific question about a specific transaction, which I'll pass on to Arnold to address offline. And I think that's it then for all of our questions. If no one else has anything else to say, we will end the webinar now. Okay, thank you very much. I will put up a recording of this webinar on the website in the next few days if you need to refer back to it. And if you have any other questions going forward, please address them to Arnold or me. Thank you very much.